Welcome, everyone, to our very special Facebook Live. I am Andrew Fizakis, the Night Sky Guy, here for Astronomers Without Borders. And we're here celebrating, of course, Global Astronomy Month. This is the 12th edition of the world's largest festival celebrating astronomy and, of course, the night sky. And this week, we've got a special presentation that really coincides with one of the flagship events of Global Astronomy Month, which has been with us for many years. And that is, of course, is International Dark Sky Week. It's all about the night sky and conserving our global heritage that the night sky is for all of humanity everywhere, and things that looking at things that what you can do to help conserve the night sky and the stars above for all of us. It's all about one people, one sky, right, guys? So this is something really important, of course, not just for AWB, but the International Dark Sky Association. It's the leading advocacy group for protecting the night sky and arming people like you, all of you out there, on what you can do to protect that night sky for future generations. It's such an important thing. And of course, that's very dear to us here at Astronomers Without Borders. But of course, it's International Dark Sky Association and all its members doing so much hard work around the world of protecting night sky. And I'd like to invite everybody. I've got the chat room, by the way, open. All the comments are coming in. I see people from all over the world joining us. We've got Robin from New York City. We've got Suna from Turkey. We've got Christopher from New York, welcome. And we'd love for you to share where you're watching us from today, wherever you are around the world. It'd be love to see it. And of course, we have Olienka from Nigeria, AWB Nigeria, and our national coordinator there. Welcome to you as well. Everybody around the world, so just put in your location in the chat room. We'd love to see that. And if you have any questions for us today, it's all about dark skies and protecting dark skies. And today we have a special presentation about discovering the night, to discover the night. And this is going to be a whirlwind tour that we're going to get from a very special guest, who is Ruskin Hartley, the executive director of International Dark Sky Association. Ruskin has spent his career really directing and managing conservation programs that protect land, ocean, water, and now, of course, the skies above. Let me welcome Ruskin to the show. Hey, Ruskin, nice to see you.
Hey, Andrew, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful. Where are you joining us from today?
I am joining us from my son's bedroom in Tucson, Arizona in the United States.
Wow, Tucson. Oh my gosh. You guys must have really good skies there in that region, right?
We do. I'll talk a little bit about it. We're very fortunate to have some beautiful skies. In fact, I can step out in my driveway on a dark night and see the Milky Way overhead, just a few miles from downtown.
It's at IDA, you and I met a couple of years ago at a wonderful workshop, night sky workshop at the Shenandoah National Park in the United States. Yeah. And, since then, I've seen so much that IDA is doing. So we're really excited. I'm very excited to have you here, showcase to us some of the programs and efforts and things that IDA has been involved in, working hard in protecting the night sky. And I want to make sure that people, Ruskin's here to be able to answer questions as well. So if you have any questions, put them into the comment section. And after Ruskin's presentation, we'll take a look at your questions and we'll be able to ask Ruskin. We have a little chat after as well. So Ruskin, I'm going to let you take it away for us, and I'm going to hand it over to you. So here we go.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's exciting to be here during our Global Astronomy Month. You said it's been going, 12 years? I think the first International Dark Sky Week, the first Dark Sky Week was held in 2007. And I would say it's just gone from strength to strength from there. So thank you for having us on board so that we can share a little bit about the work that IDA is doing, a little bit about what light pollution is, and as you said, Andrew, critically, how you can be part of the solution. I was just looking at some of the names in the chat. Some are familiar. I want to say hi to Alienka. She was a wonderful advocate out in Nigeria who actually joined our global conference last fall. So it's great to see you, Alienka. So this is where I lived for the better part of 20 years when I was working on land and water conservation, working on forest conservation, and really not thinking about the sky overhead. This is the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's a beautiful city in America. Many Europeans, I think it's probably the only city in the United States they could probably feel comfortable in. And one of the things that happened when I was there, they decided that they would light up the beautiful Bay Bridge, just create another aspect of the night sky. And so this is what I was used to for 20 years. You can see the color of the sky there. I think that's actually Comet Neowise there. So you can see some astronomical objects even under a very light polluted sky. But over the last few years, since I've joined IDA and moved out to Tucson, I've really come on a journey from those inner city skies, those suburban skies that I used to live in, and now those sort of transitional rural and skies, and have much better access to what I know many people on this call really care about and yearn for, which are those dark sky sites where you can go out and be one with the cosmos. Places like this, Cedar Breaks on the Colorado Plateau, just a magical, beautiful part of the world, and as we'll learn, increasingly rare. So what about IDA, the International Dark Sky Association? We've been around 32 years. We're a nonprofit based in the US, but we have a global footprint, and as you can see, our mission's pretty simple to talk about anyway. We're about protecting the night from light pollution around the world. And you can see those are the countries where we have advocates and dark sky places, about 50 places, countries around the world, currently on every continent, and I'd say growing rapidly. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about what is light pollution, why you should care, and how you can help solve it. This was a photo that one of our wonderful advocates, Megan Eves in London, shared with me recently, and I think it really illustrates the problem. This is a city street in the suburbs of London. That bright street light is causing the sort of first order of light pollution, which is glare. No one likes glare. It really is problematic for our eyes. But you can see what's happening there. That light is shining directly into all those bedroom windows, keeping people awake at night. So light trespass is a really growing issue. And if you look up, you can see the sky is not dark, and the clouds are not even dark. In fact, the clouds are reflecting all that light back. So really, light pollution is the contribution from those millions of unwanted, unused lights shining up into the sky. This is an aerial shot of Brussels from above, and you can see just the network of roads and cities and streets going on, illuminating the world, whether people need that light or not. So as I'm sure people on the call know, light pollution really is a global issue. This is the famous or well-known work from Fabio Falci from 2016, the second global atlas of light pollution. And you can see that the yellows and the reds there are the most polluted spots on the planet. What we know is that 83% of people in the world live under a polluted sky. 99% of people in Europe and North America live under a light polluted sky. And what's increasingly clear is the vast majority of those people don't know that they're missing anything. They don't know light pollution even exists. And the last one I want to point out, and that's why there's such urgency to change and reverse this growing trend, is light pollution is growing at twice the rate of population growth, over 2% annually globally. In many places around the world, it's growing maybe in double digits. Unless we change that, maybe we really risk being the last generation to really being able to look up and see the sky in all its glory. But why care? Everyone on this call, I'm sure, cares about it. And many of you, I know, you're amateur astronomers, professional astronomers, you have that connection. Light pollution, the sky above is really part of our shared global heritage. It's the places that we first told our stories. It's the way that we discovered and explored our universe and our place in the universe. But light pollution is much more than our global heritage. It's much more than our connection with it. Light pollution impacts all living things. Every single species, essentially, that's ever been studied has been shown to be impacted by artificial light at night in some way, from the moths drawn to flames, for instance. There's a recent study came out looking at the 46 million insects that flew into Las Vegas a few years ago. And what that study demonstrated for the first time is those insects weren't being drawn to the individual lights. Those insects were being drawn to the overall sky glow that was emanating from that city, disrupting those insects. And as you might have been reading about, there really is an insect apocalypse underway. Insect decline is real, and insects really are the base of our food chain with all of the pollination services they provide to us. Across every taxa we look at, from birds being drawn into cities and colliding with skyscrapers, through to changing dynamics between predator and prey being studied in Utah, every single living thing on the planet is impacted by light pollution in some shape or form, including us. There's also just the basic tenet that wasted light is wasted energy. And at a time where the planet is facing a climate emergency, a climate crisis, anything we can do to reduce our energy use is clearly being part of the solution. And again, when you're looking at wasted light, when you turn those lights down, when you turn those lights off, you have a double impact. You immediately reduce light pollution, and you're contributing to the reduction in greenhouse gases. Therefore, you're being part of the solution for climate change. We estimate in the US alone, we waste at least $3 billion a year in wasted energy on unwanted and unneeded lights. We're also learning more about the social aspects of light pollution and the relationship to social justice. Those of you who have been working on conservation issues will know that water pollution and air pollution often adversely and have a greater impact on poorer, disadvantaged communities of color. There's a recent study out of the University of Utah last year that, I guess it's no surprise, but did find for the first time that light pollution disproportionately impacts communities of color here in the United States. So that means, if you're poor, if you're living in an inner city neighborhood, you're more likely to be impacted by high levels of light pollution, which translates through to all of those impacts on human health, plus, of course, the inability to see the sky. Now, fortunately, as Andrew alluded to at the start, light pollution does have a simple solution. We like to call it community-friendly lighting. There's a great example here in the city of Tucson about a city that took these steps and put them into action. And we'll talk a little bit about the impact of those. We like to think about responsible use of light along these different axes. First you need to think about, is the light useful? If there's no use for light, don't put it out. Is the light targeted down at the ground? Is it at the right intensity? Are you using lower levels of light more and more? It's becoming clear that more light does not equal more safety. One of the exciting frontiers for light pollution control is this fact you can control these lights. You can have a light that's off and that will come on when someone comes by, or a light that will be dimmed down. And the last aspect of responsible lighting is really looking at the color, really looking at those warm, rich amber lights as they have less of an impact on sky glow, on the night sky, and less of an impact on species. Now, the city of Tucson worked on a project over the last few years to put these into practice. And as a result, as they changed out almost 20,000 street luminaires, they actually were able to reduce the amount of light the city was using by 63%, translating to a 34% reduction in short wavelength blue light emissions. And most excitingly, maybe for the city who was having to pay for this, they actually saved an awful lot of money. They were saving $2.1 million a year in annual energy costs. So the city, by taking those simple steps, were able to light the city to ensure that the commerce could happen. There's a city of 500,000 people. It's not a small town. And they're able to do it in a way that actually saved money, reduced light pollution, and created a warm, welcoming environment that was safe for the people in the city in Tucson. I wanted to close by saying one of the real bright spots in the dark sky movement is how it's being taken up around the world. One of our signature programs is our International Dark Sky Place program. So these are communities, these are parks around the world that are really doing everything they can to use light responsibly, to invite people out to enjoy a dark sky, and to really help people understand that there are things that they can do when they go back to their city, go back to their home, to address light pollution in their community. And we've been really excited to see the growth of this over the last number of years. The first dark sky place in the world was the city of Flagstaff, here in northern Arizona. We now have over 170 dark sky places on 6 continents. We haven't got one on Antarctica yet. We'd love to see that happen, but 6 continents have dark sky places, and we are seeing an explosion in interest at the moment on this. So just today, in fact, we are really excited to announce the first international dark sky park in Austria, in Central Europe. I'll probably mispronounce it, but Attersee Tarensee Nature Park in Austria is taking really important steps to protect its dark skies. So we're really excited to see that growth taking off in Central Europe and Austria. In Northern Ireland, in the United Kingdom, Davenor Forest Park was established last year, therefore becoming the last of the 4 nations in the United Kingdom to have an international dark sky park established. Up in your part of the world, Andrew, and Quetico Provincial Park up in Canada got international dark sky park recognition last year. And down in New Zealand, there's really a strong movement to protect their dark skies as a critical part of their tourist economy. Here's Waitiki was the first international dark sky park established in New Zealand last year. And I would say there's half a dozen places underway across that incredible country. There's some incredible skies down there. Kozushi Island in Japan is actually part of the Tokyo Prefecture. And it's really the playground for many people in Tokyo. And it became an international dark sky park last year, showing that even prefectures known for their very urban settings can have these dark remote places. And it's really exciting to see people coming from Tokyo to experience those dark skies and hopefully being left with some thoughts that they can take when they go back to the metropolis to think about ways that they can do things differently. This one's close to my heart. This is the Yorkshire Dales National Park in England. In fact, my parents live in the Yorkshire Dales National Park, an incredible landscape with real rich culture, rich history, and it became one of the new international dark sky reserves last year. And reserves are places where these are living landscapes. These are parks, but they're places where people live. It's great to see those two coming together. People really investing in protecting the sky overhead as part of that rich cultural and natural landscape. Ridgway, Colorado, here in the US, became a dark sky community last year. And last but not least, Mesa Verde, a great national park here on the Colorado Plateau, just this week became our 100th international dark sky park around the world. So I hope this shows that the dark sky movement is growing, it's strong. And I think it's exciting to think about in the next 2 or 3 years where we can take this. Where will be the next international dark sky park? Where will be the next community that really embraces responsible lighting, so that we can continue to enjoy that connection to the sky overhead and do our part to protect the planet for the benefit of the wildlife that we live with, for the insects that are at the base of the food chain, and yes, so that we can continue to enjoy that connection to the sky overhead. We have great resources available on our website. You can go to darksky.org to check it out, or this week during International Dark Sky Week, go to idsw.darksky.org and you can participate in a very rich array of virtual and in-person events that are happening around the world, and you can find communities that you can get involved with to again be part of the solution, so that we make sure that we're not the last generation to enjoy a wonderful dark sky. Thank you.
There we go. That's great, Ruskin. Thank you so much. It's amazing to see these skies. I think these like I'm amazed at watching. I'm always loving these dark sky views that they exist, but they're very precious, right? I mean, that's the to identify these sites and then to conserve them. It seems like that is something that it's not just one person who can do this, or like a celebrity can do this. It's really up to everyday people, and the
Yeah.
IDA is really relying on people around the world, aren't they, to conserve these skies.
Yeah, I mean, the history of many of these places, it does start with one person, but it's never successful if it's just one person. So it's the person who says, I'm going to do something about this, and gathers a community of people around them and figures out, how does this resonate in this community? So in Tucson, you can talk about professional astronomy. The professional astronomy industry is a very important part of the economy down here in southern Arizona. But that might not work in another part of the world. So you have to figure out, okay, what resonates. So for instance, there are communities in New Zealand where what really resonates there is the contribution to the economy. The tourism, the astrotourism is something that they're concerned about and they're committed to. Other places, it just might be protecting the rural way of life. If you're in a rural community and you're a farming community, maybe the sky above is part of your cultural heritage and you want to see it protected even as the community grows. I think the challenge ahead is it's no longer enough to focus on protecting just the precious dark sky places. We know that light pollution from cities travels hundreds and hundreds of miles. So the challenge ahead is, how do we translate this to the cities and to the communities and make this relevant? Dark sky protection, protecting the world from light pollution, cannot just be seen as an issue for rural communities. We have to make the case that using less light and using it responsibly just makes sense. It makes economic sense. It's part of protecting the planet from climate change. And when you use light responsibly, you actually create a more welcoming, more beautiful city.
Most definitely, and what you're talking about is really resonating, I think, with our audience here, and we've actually have some questions here for you, Ruskin. Byron Labadie asks, what is he? Let me see. Hold on. How would I convince my city leaders to reduce light pollution over time in my city? It has about 500,000 with surrounding suburbs. They are very likely to protest the cost to modify city streetlights and state that crime reduction is far more important. I want to counter them with a reply that they would have trouble denying.
That's always the question there. Now, how do you tackle the crime question? There is no data that there's no consistent evidence that suggests more light makes you more safe, and there's plenty of evidence that suggests the reverse, and you can find some of those resources on our website. And so I think it's partly is making friends with your local law enforcement officials as well, and demonstrating to them, for instance, if you take them out to a car dealership that's shining bright lights out into the street, how it is actually blinding people so they cannot see what's going in on behind those lights. Those bright lights are creating those shadows. And I think with the city leaders, it's building a community that cares about it. It cannot be seen as a niche issue about just the dark sky people who care about this. We're facing this at the moment in Santa Fe, where the city of Santa Fe is considering upgrading its streetlights. It's about 90,000 people. And the mayor has basically said, we want to hear from people who are not just the dark sky advocates and the dark sky community. In the case of that city, it's going to be about, how do you protect the cultural heritage of that city? The city prides itself in the ambience of the city. And then demonstrating how economically, by choosing warmer, rich lights, they can have their savings, they can have their cost savings because they're more efficient than the ones that they're replacing, but they can do it in a way that also reduces light pollution. So I think particularly when you're talking in big cities, the economics have to work. You have to be able to lead with the economics on this, because that's obviously what the city officials are concerned with.
We have another question from Suna in Turkey, who's asking, when I was in high school, I saw an article about light pollution that talks about protests with scientists doing the protest, saying that that advocating to turn off artificial lights. He says, I'm curious about it. Do you think it's an effective way to take attention to, I guess, to put attention onto light pollution's effects on Earth?
I think that there's certainly a role for turning off lights. We would advocate that lights are not needed, should be turned off. The lights that are really not needed should just be removed. I think there's certainly a growing movement like Earth Hour or turning off lights during bird migration season. And I think it has great strides to raise awareness of the issue. Ultimately, the long-term solution is not about turning off all of the lights. No, the dark sky movement is about a dark sky, not about a dark ground. And so we need to kind of break that down, have people say, no, it's not about less light per se. It's about the better use of light. And when you have been exposed to bad light and good light, you see it all over the place. And you can never get that bad light out of your mind. The problem is most people have not had that level of exposure. And I think that's one of those other opportunities, and that's why these dark sky places are important. They're not just about dark skies. They're about places where you can go and see how light is being used responsibly.
We have another question from Uthayan, who's asking, responsible lighting designs means that the designer needs to be educated or qualified. How do we know who the qualified light designers are?
That's a great question. There is no single training or certification for that at the moment. I think many lighting designers do subscribe to our principles for responsible lighting. And I think it's always a question of going and asking them, like showing, show me some examples of where you have put these principles into practice. And I think that the bigger issue is, I was actually talking to my mother, who's an architect, about this earlier. It's like more often than not, the issue is that no lighting designer is involved. And so maybe an architect is involved in making the decision, or maybe it's a contractor involved in making the decision. And so, for instance, that's one of the reasons we have a new partnership with the Innovative Association of Lighting Designer, not lighting distributors, because something like in the US, 70 or 80% of lights are put up by lighting distributors. So we want to educate the lighting distributors about the difference between a good wall pack and a poor wall pack, and how you can have good performance if you put a fully shielded wall pack in. We do have a program at the International Dark Sky Association called our Fixture Seal of Approval program, where you can go on and you can find fixtures that shine the light down and have warmer colors. So if you're have to make decisions for yourself about maybe changing out a light or putting out a new light, if you look at that list, you can find some ideas about good options.
Valentin in Romania, Valentin Grigor is our national coordinator in Romania. Hi, Valentin. Nice to see a question from you. Now, so he's looking at the big picture, and he says, we all know the negative impacts and effects of light pollution. We know that light pollution is a global problem. But he says, but at this very moment, we seem to be losing the battle with light pollution. It moves faster than we can take action on. And we do need global action. What makes IDA in a position to create this global action? Because it says, because it's time to have results at a global level.
Well, we couldn't agree more with that statement, that it is a global issue and we want to see global results. And it is one of those issues that we can measure it. We can quantify the change by looking at the satellite data and looking at the data that's collected on the ground. It's very different to work I've been involved in previously around forest conservation. It's much harder to quantify those changes. So we have a great indicator. Now, as you say, the challenge is, we continue to use more and more and more light. And in fact, we're using more light per person than we, every year than we absolutely need to. The challenge with light pollution is all the decisions are made locally. Even if there is no global consensus around this issue. There is a report going to the United Nations this year, putting a spotlight on this issue. We hope there will be some global statements come out about that, but ultimately it'll be up for each country to determine how it wants to adopt those. And then in many countries, the decisions about lighting are pushed right down to the local level. That's the case here in the US. There's no national standard around light pollution. We would love there to be one. We'd love there to be a Clean Night Sky Act. At the moment, there is not. And the decisions are made municipality by municipality. It makes it challenging, but it also means that you can have an impact locally in your community because you probably know the decision makers.
Definitely. We all can make a difference in this. It takes, like you said, many times it starts with one person, right, Ruskin? That's what you've advocated for. I have a question, actually. I would love to know what in the conserving of the night sky. One of the newest things that are issues are related to all these small satellites that are being put up by private companies. SpaceX, of course, comes to mind with their Starlink satellites as one of them. And there's so many of them. And of course, AWB is tapped into the astronomical community at large. And this is something that we're hearing from our community as being a concern. We see astrophotographers talking about this as well. I'm just wondering, what's IDA's thoughts on these satellites that are just increasing in numbers?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had our work. If we were having this conversation 2 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd have been talking about just the challenges of ground-based light pollution. And I think while everyone knew that satellites were visible, who hasn't looked up in wonder at the space station going past, for instance, and found that's a pretty neat sight. I think it took many of us by surprise when Starlink launched its first salvo of 60 satellites, and suddenly we had streaks going across the fields of telescopes and streaking across the sky so visibly. And then suddenly the realization that that was the first 60 of thousands that were going to be launched. Just over a year ago, we did come up with some high-level principles that we would like all of the operators to subscribe to. And basically, we don't want them to be visible, certainly to the naked eye. The 8 billion people on the planet shouldn't look up and see it alive with artificial satellites, kind of changing our relationship to the universe forever. Fortunately, we have, certainly with SpaceX, we've been engaged with them, as has the professional astronomy community, and we have seen some movement. I think they're genuine in their attempt to reduce the visibility of those satellites. The jury is ultimately out at the moment whether how successful they will be for the naked eye observer. And that is not to speak about the astrophotographer or the amateur or the professional astronomer who's going to have to deal with this. And it really speaks to this balance between that we believe that the night sky is a global commons. And we should have a debate about how we use that global commons. And it shouldn't be that one individual and one company can despoil it for the 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, I think, an issue that we'll all have to grapple with. We're going to have to raise awareness. I think our organizations like IDA and AWB can showcase that, what the effects are, and what, and rally the community. I mean, really and raise that awareness with people of what the effects are. And corporations need to be stewards of and we talk about climate change, environmental things, and the sky is part of that, isn't it? So it's an integral part, and it's a heritage.
I mean, I see one of the questions in the chat about kind of relationship between climate change and light pollution, and this has been a complex issue for the last decade. And I would say that the focus on energy efficiency has driven the world to use more white light. Essentially, white light, traditionally LEDs, has been more efficient than some of the amber sources that they were replacing. The spreads have now changed. You can get some pretty efficient, low temperature low white lights that have less blue content and some pretty decent amber lights now that have high energy efficiency. But I think that the point here is the narrow focus on one aspect of sustainability has kind of come to the detriment of some of the other aspects of sustainability. So let's say if you want to save birds, you could, from the effects of what's going on around the planet, you can either use less light and they won't be drawn into the city and therefore they will go on their migrationary path, or you can use less light and less energy and have an impact on climate change over time. And we like to say we need to do both. We need to think about both, and we need to be engaged more with the climate community to make them understand that there are other aspects of building a sustainable future, and using less light is part of using less energy. So yeah, making those connections with those other communities and those elected officials. We have had instances where very well-meaning environmentalists and conservationists will say, no, we have to put up those high efficient lights because that's the only way to address climate change, and they're missing the bigger picture there.
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue, definitely, and it's a growing one, and it's IDA and AWB and organizations like this, I think, that are really, it's up to us to really bring notice. I mean, we have the experts in our membership and the people who really value it and who are going to help spread the word about this. And I want to thank you very much, Ruskin, for joining us today. And Adam, I think in our comments, I'm just reading, Adam says this, and I think we all agree. Thank you so much for leading the way to darker skies. That's Ruskin and your group. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for having us, Andrew. I feel very fortunate that we get to support and empower the work of our advocates around the world. I mean, our goal is to set some global standards as to what this means, to help monitor and measure the changes over time, raise awareness around it, and really help celebrate people's successes so that we can be doing more of this and ultimately turn back the clock on light pollution.
Exactly. And if people want to get more information on how you can get involved with this wonderful movement to protect our global heritage of the night sky, and look at all the good work that IDAs were doing, just go to their website at www.darksky.org. We'll have the link in the comment section below. And of course, it's International Dark Sky Week. So check out all the wonderful events and things that they have in store. And don't forget to share with their hashtag IDSW, and also use, of course, Global Astronomy Month hashtag GAM 2021 as well. Ruskin, thanks so much for your time. This was absolutely enlightening, and it was an absolute pleasure. I hope we can get to do this again.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Anytime,
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks for having us on.
Wonderful to have you. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us, all of you out there, for Global Astronomy Month. It's a jam-packed month. There's events every week, all throughout the month of April. You don't want to miss. And we keep adding new events. And for those of you that are watching this, and it's you've got events that you're holding with the public, online events, for instance, do add them to our Global Astronomy Month calendar. You can find that all the links of how to register your event, and also to check out what we're offering, all the different events around the world. You can see that on the link just below here, where it's GAM-AWB.org. All the information is there. We'd love to see you. Don't forget, we've got more stuff in store. Next week, we've got our encounter with Mars and the Moon, Global Star Party, our Beauty Without Borders photo campaign. You don't want to miss that. We're in partnership with timeanddate.com. It's going to be a really neat thing where you can take photographs of Mars and the Moon. That's just one thing. We've got One Sky, One Postcard, a wonderful Astro Arts campaign that we're looking for you to provide your artwork, your poetry, your night sky photography, and share it with us in an amazing global scrapbooking event. And you can get all that information on our website at gam-awb.org or astronomerswithoutborders.org. So with that, I want to wish all of you clear skies. And of course, as our slogan says, one people, one sky. Cheers, everyone.
From the pale blue dot to the distant stars, we are one. One people, one sky.